So today I will talk from the perspective of the professor. So what does it mean to be a PhD supervisor at University of Helsinki? What are the current trends? And hopefully we'll see that there are some new things you can learn from that. So I'm an associate professor at the doctoral program on atmospheric science. The doctoral program in atmospheric science, our goal is to educate top-level atmospheric scientists and experts, which should be able to work not only in scientific institutions, but in any kind of position they want to choose for. So what is my experience of being PhD supervisor? Up to now, I have supervised 4 PhD students and currently supervising 7 PhD students. I've been acting as supervisor, primary, secondary supervisor at several universities. University of Helsinki, Aalto University. I have students at Tartu University and University of Cologne in Germany. So that allows me to look at the differences and similarities at the different European organizations, how they organize the PhD process, and find similarities and differences. And I hope that I can share them with you today. And of course, I myself got my PhD some time ago from the Netherlands, from Delft University of Technology. So yet another place where I have an experience. So if you start off similarities between the programs and different universities, and I should say that some of the things which I will tell you today is actually relatively recent. At least my experiences being PhD students were somewhat different from what I'm currently seeing as the trend at all the top European universities. Well, in all of them, the goal is, of course, it's educating experts and scientists. The process of education is research oriented. So there's a big emphasis is on carrying out research work and taking courses or some other activities as somewhat is just aimed to help with the organizing own research. The current theme in all the universities, it's something which you could call structured guidance. So basically, you would try to structure the guidance of the student in a specific way, but this guidance is not a bureaucratic process. It's more of a guidance, so it's flexible. So one of the point of the structured guidance, for example, is a supervision agreement. And many universities, that's currently when you hire PhD students or you start as a PhD students, you will go through the supervision agreement in one form or another, where you would be explained what your rights are, what your obligations are, and how you can interact with the PhD supervisor, what happens if something goes wrong, and so on. Then, in many cases, you have personal study plan. A personal study plan includes both kind of your research plan, as well as the type of courses you're supposed to take. Again, we are preparing this personal study plan in the beginning of the PhD, but again, it's not set in stone. Things could change. But the goal of this is that we give some thought what is needed during those years. And now again, another thing which is relatively recent, at least in University of Helsinki, and in some other universities, is the PhD committee or the monitoring group. It's basically a group of the professors or the people with the PhDs who are not directly related to the PhD supervisor or student, and they are there to help in case to monitor the PhD process and help with the program process. And of course, that would be the group where student could talk to if something goes wrong, which is actually a very useful thing. And differences between the programs. Of course, there are some differences between the programs. For example, the big difference is the expected duration of PhD studies. In some universities, like in Germany, it's typically 3 years. At University of Helsinki, it's typically 4 years. Study requirements in terms of the courses which you're supposed to take. Like at University of Helsinki, we are required to take students to take 40 ECTS courses, so 10 courses of the general studies and 30 credits of the subject-specific studies. In some places that doesn't exist and you're not required to take any courses. Then there may be some duties which a student is expected to take. For example, and typically students at University of Helsinki doing some teaching. So they're either assisting the courses or they might be even lecturing the courses if they are quite advanced students. And typically as a guideline, it's about 5% of their time should be dedicated to this. Then the recommendations for the thesis. In many cases, like we will hear about, it's the article thesis. So it's basically consists of the articles plus introduction. Of course, in some other places, it could be just a monograph, and it also depends on the subject. So if in natural sciences, article-based theses are more common. In some humanities, monographs are more common. Then, of course, what does it mean, articles? What kind of articles, how many? Well, again, it depends very much on the institution. Somewhere there is no requirements or number of papers. We have a recommendation that it's either 3 first author paper, 1 with the significant contribution, or 2 first author papers and 3 with significant contribution. And of course, the procedure itself, how the defense, this public defense is organized. There are differences there. So if you think about the PhD process, we can actually also, from my perspective, if you start thinking what different stages are taking place in this process, we basically can roughly divide it into the 3 stages. We have the knowledge acquisition stage, we have this participation stage, and we have knowledge creation stage. You see that I'm not defining here any kind of, like in this year we take the courses, and then in that year we do this, and that year we do that. Well, those stages, they don't have to go sequentially, they can be going in parallel. So knowledge acquisition stage, it's where we are trying to give students enough knowledge so that they can perform their tasks and they would be successfully complete their thesis. So they'll do the research, they write the thesis itself. So we can define the so at the same time, they are participating in the research under supervision of either like a primary supervisor or maybe working with some more experienced colleagues. So they're giving the learning new techniques. I'm myself experimentalist, so I would be talking about more about how to do the observations, analyze data, and that kind of things. So the students have to learn that. Participation, it's also a very important part because you need to be part of the scientific community. So you need to be able to do the joint research projects with people from different backgrounds and cultures. And you should be able to talk to them. You should be able to do experiments together. You should be able to present your results at the conferences. And here, quite often people simplified it to the saying that, okay, you need to have good English knowledge. English knowledge is important, but it's not sufficient. You need to be able to talk in the right language You need to find a common language with people from different backgrounds. As if you're working in an interdisciplinary field, that's even more challenging because people in different fields, they will speak different scientific jargon. They will use different scientific jargon. So you need to learn that, how to communicate them. So that's a skill which is extremely important in a modern society. And the knowledge creation, that's the final stage where we create publications. So the final thing of the PhD is, of course, PhD thesis. That's the process. Well, I kind of already explained it more or less, so I will just quickly go through this. Knowledge acquisition. The first thing we do is the personal study plan. We draft it together with a student. Typically, as a PhD advisor, I will try to see what are the gaps in the student background. Maybe he missed some courses or he needs extra knowledge on some topic. So based on that, I will recommend some courses for the student. Luckily for us, in our program, we have set of mandatory compulsory courses, but we still have quite a lot of flexibility. So I can adjust my recommendation accordingly. And that's very important to have flexibility. New skills, transferable skills. Again, I would recommend students certain courses in order for them to develop new skills. Again, flexibility is the key here because like who heard about big data like 5 years ago? Nobody. Now you cannot do anything without doing big data analysis and that kind of things. So of course, there are some things which are universally good, like computational skills, project management skills, but there are some things which could come at any moment. So we should be able to adjust and we have enough flexibility in our curriculum. One of the things which we are doing quite a lot in Helsinki, we're organizing summer winter schools, which are basically we're using problem-based learning techniques there, where the students working on some kind of scientific problems together in the groups. So they learn skills by communicating with each other, and they learn how to solve problems. That's very important. And of course, a big part of the knowledge acquisition is supervised research. So when you work, the student works in a direct contact with other students or with the PhD advisor. And again, it's the goal of the PhD advisor is to set up the environment. It's not being available all the time to the student, but provide the environment where the student can thrive and learn things from the surrounding. So at University of Helsinki, we have something called guidance groups, where they're meeting regularly, and the students and the more senior people can discuss each other research projects or problems as well. Participation, again, summer schools, student seminars is another great way. We are kind of in a mandatory way, we're forcing students to present their work, listen to the others' presentations. In guidance groups or the big groups where students work, they are, of course, presenting their results, they're discussing with the colleagues, and they're writing papers together. And then, of course, another big part, which we are kind of asking students to do is actually, my students are all reviewing papers for journals for which they want to publish. And then, of course, you may also focus on writing proposals and that kind of thing. We also, our students taking part in international and national conferences. And quite often we carry out research jointly with the groups abroad. So all our students are pretty well connected to the international community. And knowledge creation is, of course, it's the most obvious part here. While we are looking based on everything, at the end of the day, we are hoping that the students are capable of creating new knowledge, discover new science. They can make new measurement or data analysis methodologies. They can make new models or theories. And of course, at the end of the day, every new knowledge which we are creating should end up as a peer-reviewed publication, one way or another. And then, of course, they make a PhD thesis. So in a summary, we are educating professional scientists. And the professional scientist is a term I heard a couple of years ago. It doesn't mean that you're only capable of doing science or doing science discovery, but you're capable of communicating with your colleagues. You're capable of presenting your work. You're capable of explaining to the general public as well why your work is important. We have, as I explained, we have 3 stages of knowledge acquisition, participation, and knowledge creation, which are kind of part of the PhD process. Structured guidance is the key, which is important. So we're creating a structure for guiding students, but it has to be flexible. I hope that we don't get in the stage where it would be prescribed bureaucratically, because as a supervisor, I hate dealing with bureaucracy. I hope, typically I think that I know better. So I would like to minimize bureaucracy as much as possible. But all of this, what I said, it can be considered more demanding for supervisors, because it gives you basically take responsibility for the students to some extent. You cannot just say, okay, here's the problem for a student, go around and solve it. No, we are actually providing guidance, and we are guiding students through the whole process. That was it. Thank you for your attention.